This is your window into paradise, into a lush, eternal garden full of color and flowers. But this painting holds more than just a garden. It holds one of the most extraordinary cities in history, a family whose wealth shaped an entire era, and a painter at the height of his power. Beauty and cruelty, mythology and politics, and buried inside all of that, an invitation meant for all of us. This is Primavera by Sandro Botticelli, and this is its story that is still alive in the way we live today. Florence in the second half of the 15th century is unlike anything Europe had seen before. It doesn't have a crown or a court. What it has is something far more powerful. A single family with extraordinary wealth, deep influence, and an unusual devotion to art, culture, and new ideas. The Medici. They had built their fortune in banking, and with it, they're building palaces, filling libraries, hiring philosophers, and commission painters. It is also under their patronage that the Middle Ages give way to the Renaissance, a period shaped by new ideas about art, beauty, and what it meant to be human. Florence becomes the birthplace of this new era, and for a few remarkable decades, the center of the universe. And in the middle of all of this is Sandro Botticelli. He had grown up in Florence, and by his 30s, he's no longer just a successful painter in the city. He has become part of the Medici world. He knows the philosophers, he reads the poems, he paints portraits of the family and frescoes for their chapels. This is a painter at the height of his power, in the most stimulating city in Europe, at the most remarkable moment in that city's history. And sometime around 1480, most likely commissioned by a member of the Medici family, he paints the lush garden of Primavera. For over 500 years, people have tried to understand what meaning Botticelli has placed inside this garden. Because believe me, it's full of it. According to several scholars, the painting is made for Lorenzo di Pierfrancesco de' Medici in connection with his marriage to Semiramide Appiani. It supposedly hangs in his bedchamber, where a young bride would see it for the first time after her wedding and every morning of her new life. So it isn't just a beautiful painting. It is a message for the bride, wrapped in mythology. Sapphire, the west wind, bursts in from outside the frame, reaching for a nymph named Chloris. And the moment he touches her, flowers begin to fall from her mouth. She's transforming right in front of us. And there, just beside her, stands who she becomes. Flora, the goddess of spring, calm and luminous, scattering roses across the ground. The girl who arrives, the woman she becomes, and the promise she carries of new life, of fertility, of the seasons turning. And at the center, presiding over all of it, stands Venus. She's not the goddess of desire. She's something quieter. The model of what a young wife is expected to become, a guide, an ideal, a standard set in paint. Above Venus, Cupid flies blindfolded, arrow drawn, as the force that binds two lives together. And when you let your eyes travel further to the left, you find the three graces, often associated with ideals like chastity, beauty, and pleasure. They are the virtues a Florentine bride is meant to carry into her new life. At the very edge, Mercury turns his back on the whole scene and lifts his staff toward the sky. Some scholars suggest that he may carry the face of the groom himself, already thinking of what comes next. That is one reading, the one painted for a young bride and her groom. Many more readings exist, all of them convincing, but none of them complete. No single reading accounts for everything we see. But there's another kind of conflict here, one that lies not inside the painting, but behind it. The lush, eternal garden may look peaceful, but the world in which Botticelli painted it is anything but. Just a few years before this painting was created, a member of the Medici family, Giuliano de' Medici, had been murdered inside the Cathedral of Florence. The Pazzi conspiracy, an assassination attempt backed by rival banking families and supported by the Pope himself, left Giuliano dead and his brother Lorenzo wounded but alive. As a painter at the very heart of the Medici circle, Botticelli is not standing apart from this. He receives a commission to paint not beauty, but punishment. The hanged conspirators on the walls of the Palazzo Vecchio. A pittura d'infamia, a painting of shame for all of Florence to see. The same hands that will create this beautiful garden of eternal spring have also painted hanged men on the walls of the city. The Medici survive, Florence holds, and for a few more years, so does the world that had made the garden of Primavera possible. Botticelli paints beauty again, not only the Primavera, but also the birth of Venus, the luminous, mythological worlds that will make him immortal. He even travels to Rome, where the Pope himself has commissioned him to paint the walls of the Sistine Chapel. When Botticelli dies in 1510, his style is already considered old-fashioned. Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, they have moved art in a direction that leaves no room for Botticelli's delicate lines and mythological dream worlds. Within decades of his death, his fame has dramatically faded. And for centuries, the painter behind one of the most beautiful images ever created is largely forgotten from the history of art. It was not until the second half of the 19th century that art critics like John Ruskin and Walter Pater admire the peculiar beauty of his work. Also, the pre-Raphaelites, a group of artists who reject the polished smoothness of later Renaissance painting, discover in him exactly what they have been looking for, a way of painting that feels both sensual and spiritual at the same time. And so, Botticelli slowly begins to resurface. Today, the Primavera hangs in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, the same city where it was painted, and millions stand before it every year. All this incredible history, as well as philosophy, mythology, and politics. But for a moment, let's keep all of that aside. I would love for you to look at something different with me. Because when you stop trying to decode the figures and let your eyes drop to the bottom of the painting, something astonishing appears. Hundreds of individual plants, close to 200 species, each one painted with so much care and so much precision. Every petal curves differently, every stem bends its own way. Daisies, dandelions, irises, poppies, hyacinths. Botticelli did not paint a meadow. He painted every single flower. And he gave them the same weight, the same attention he gave to the gods and goddesses standing above them. These are all flowers that bloom in the Tuscan countryside between March and May. Botticelli must have studied them closely, from the botanical imagery of his era and quite possibly from the fields and hillsides around Florence themselves. The politics are gone. The Medici are gone. and 300 years of forgetting are gone. But the garden is still here, and the flowers Botticelli painted over 500 years ago, they still bloom every spring in the hills around Florence. Spring in this painting is first and foremost also about transformation, about something cold becoming something alive. And that same transformation is happening right now, outside your window, wherever you are. So the invitation of this painting is simple: to enjoy that beauty, to look the way Botticelli probably looked at all those flowers. Slowly, carefully, one at a time, on the canvas and in the world just outside your door.